Where are we? What the hell is going on? The dust has only just begun to fall. Crop circles in the carpet, sinking feeling. Spin me round again and rub my eyes. This can't be happening when busy streets a mess with people would stop to hold their heads heavy.
My name's Julie Fager. I work at the University of Texas at Austin in University Health Services, and I'm in charge of sex education. I have my master's in public health in sexuality and health from Columbia University in New York City. I think one of the things that comes up a lot is that in our culture we have throughout history pathologized, which is to say, like, made a problem, black sexuality. We have lots of these things are less explicit now as they used to be, but there were lots of terms like Jezebel, which was routinely applied to black women, particularly during slavery and after slavery, as like these seductive black women who would, you know, sleep with husbands of white women, although it's sort of hilarious to think about that because most of the time it was in fact the husband who was maybe pursuing and forcing the black women to have sex with him. So it's interesting, like, the way the power dynamics played there. And also the same way with sort of pathologizing black male sexuality as being like hypersexual. And, you know, if you look at, and you see this now, I think you see it in pornography, like if you look at the way that black people are portrayed in porn, a lot of times it's playing into those kinds of stereotypes, like, you know, the big black stud, you know, and if you read, you know, like Penthouse letters or something like that, there's always white women who will write in like, oh, I've always had a fantasy about having sex with a big black stud, and these stereotypes that we have that, you know, black men have huge penises and that kind of thing. So we've pathologized black sexuality in a lot of ways, and not only is obviously that stuff is racist and it's not accurate. Like, people have sex, it's the same, like humans have sex, period. There's not differences by color, but one of the things that allows to happen is that historically, because we sort of describe black sexuality as being problematic, the things that result from it, which are not any different than the things that would result from sex in people of any other race, which is to say pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections, those are things that happen as a result of sex, that there's always been a kind of like, well, if they weren't so sexual, you know, a kind of blaming. And I think that we see with sexual health that any time an issue becomes isolated, either in reality or in the public perception to black people, it becomes less important in terms of like public funding or even public interest in solving whatever the problem is. And you see that with, you know, with syphilis, you see it with teen pregnancy, you know, like there's never any, like, you know, I read something recently about Bristol Palin being the spokesman for the Candies Foundation, which is a foundation that discourages teen pregnancy. So it's hilarious that they would have someone who got pregnant and had a baby as a teenager as their spokesman, but there's never any examples of, you know, like black teenagers who have kids as like good role models, or like, oh, like, I did this, it was a mistake, you should not have sex too. Like, it's very pathologized. It's always a bad thing. So I think that there's a lot of that affects people because they're aware of the extent to which they're being judged, not only for their sexual behavior, because everyone is judged for their sexual behavior, but also because they're black. and so it like adds a whole another layer, to the way that people experience racism.
I'm Nancy Daly. I'm a psychologist. I teach also at the University of Texas. I teach human sexuality, and I have a PhD in counseling psychology. Well, from what my African American students tell me and from what I read, I think there are a lot of mixed messages about sexuality. I worry a lot about African American males and their role in society, and have they been completely disenfranchised? Do they really feel like they're important members of the family? Do they understand that they have a role in teaching their daughters about sexuality? I think, and then I think a lot of African American students, at least the ones I have, are struggling with the same things that all my students of every other color are. Who am I sexually? Who do I want to get with? What about the consequences of sexuality? How do I get this guy to wear a condom if he doesn't want to? So similar and some different, but I'm pretty sure they could articulate some of the differences better than I could.
All right. Would you say that teenage pregnancy in the African American community is a problem?
Yes.
Why so?
Well, because it's leading to yet another generation of young people that aren't able to support their children in an adequate way, basically, because I feel like it's not a new thing necessarily, it's a lot more rampant than it used to be, I want to say, because, I don't know, it leads to these families that the children aren't being raised in a certain way, maybe because the parents weren't raised in a certain way, and so...
So you're saying it's a generational thing?
Yeah. It's not anything new, I wouldn't say, but I would just say that the numbers have increased because of, the fact that things aren't changing and it's like getting worse instead of better.
So would you say that it's it's almost become a social norm in the African American community?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a perception thing. I think African Americans in general, just the culture itself is just so unique from other cultures that it's not that they're more accepting of the pregnancies, it's just that it's not as discussed almost. Like in a lot of other cultures, they get certain educational benefits where, they're told